Myron Golden went from making $6 as a trash man to making millions of dollars as a business owner. Now he has a social media empire with more than 3 million followers online. And one of the things he loves to talk about is sales. But that brings us to an important question. Is he actually good at sales, or is he just doing it to post content online? Well, as someone who's closing 8 million in sales a year, I decided to see for myself. And that's why in this video, we're going to break down every piece of viral advice he's given so we can make a calculated decision.
That's a huge mistake. Of all the mistakes, that may be the biggest. That may be the biggest mistake salespeople ever make, trying to get people to buy. They're trying to talk people into buying their stuff. They're trying to convince them to buy their stuff. So I'm gonna give you a couple of definitions before I go into detail here. Number one, there is a difference between selling and convincing. Selling is not convincing, and convincing is not selling. You know, "Oh, I'm a great salesman, I'm a hard closer." If you're a hard closer, you're a hard closer because you don't know how to sell. I know, I offended some of you, and I know some of you think I'm wrong, but if you change to do it this way that I'm about to show you, it'll change your life, it'll change your business. So
He's 100% correct here. Convincing is actually the opposite of selling. When I'm trying to convince someone, I'm not selling them anything. I'm trying to force my own opinion on them. Selling is being able to influence their perspective so we can find alignment to a common goal, fixing their problem with my solution.
bought them because, well, I wanted them, right? At least that's what I think. I bought those iPhones and this iPhone because I felt like buying it. See, when I understood and began to really understand at a higher level, human beings are singularly motivated, which means people do what they do for one reason and one reason only, and that is because they feel like it. You say, no, it's because they want to. The reason they want to is because they feel like it. Everything in sales, when you...
Yeah, and to take it one step further, people act according to their current identity. So people will only take actions that abide by their current belief system. If something is part of their identity, for example, if they feel that they're a top closer, they will take actions as a top closer. They will do what a top closer does. But if they see themselves as, for example, being worthless, they will take actions to prove to themselves they're worthless. And that's how people self-sabotage. You see it all the time. You maybe get an important email or an important person asks you out, and your brain immediately comes up with reasons why you shouldn't do it. You feel like an imposter, or you cancel the meeting, or you say, I'm not worthy enough for this, or I'll mess up my reputation. And all of these are signs of self-sabotage. Because of these actions, validate the story that you tell yourself about yourself, which is, I am worthless. So I'm just double-clicking on what Myron says here. It's not just what people do, what they feel like they're doing, but they act in accordance to the stories they tell themselves about themselves.
When you understand that everything in selling goes back to feelings, people buy what they feel like buying, and whatever that feeling, like whatever the feeling is that makes them feel like buying, whatever caused that feeling, but the reason they bought, because they felt like it. See, nobody needs a $300,000 car. Why do people buy Rolls Royces and Lamborghinis for $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000? Nobody needs a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 car. It doesn't get you there 10 times faster or 20 times faster than a $30,000 car. So why do people do it? They do it because they feel like it. There's something about that experience that makes them feel like yes, right? Nobody needs 10 pair of sneakers or 10 pair of shoes for that matter. You only have 1 pair of feet, but you got 10 pair of shoes. Or worse, 30 pair of shoes or 40 pair of shoes. Why did you buy them? You bought them because somebody sold them to you, and the way they sold them to you is they made you feel like buying. Because when somebody is actually good at sales and they create an environment that makes you feel like buying, you think you bought it because it was your idea.
Yes, and just to get more concrete here, because it's all about creating a buying environment, but it actually comes down to 5 crucial psychological currencies, right? And this is what I call timer. Time, identity, money, energy, reputation. These are the 4 psychological buying triggers to create a buying environment. So just to unpack that, time is how much time you save and you get back by investing in a solution. Identity is how that thing elevates your status. So when he's talking about buying a Rolls Royce, when someone buys a Rolls Royce, it's because he wants to step into the identity of someone who has a Rolls Royce. So they're buying that feeling, that identity leap. When it comes to the money, it's about how much money are you saving them or how much money are you making them. The E stands for energy, so it's how much energy will they save when they invest in your thing. This is different than time. Because someone can be working for 1 minute and it might be the most excruciating minute of their life. This is why you need to show people that you're saving their energy. And the letter R is reputation. Reputation is actually the wild card here, because people will go to wars and die for their reputation. It's actually the most powerful psychological trigger. And this is why people buy Rolls Royces. It's because they want to elevate their reputation in the eyes of other people.
Okay, so that's the fact. This is you. Or we won't even say this is you. For the sake of this illustration, we'll say this is your prospect, right? Your prospect is over here, and you're talking to them, and they observe the fact. And the fact, this could be your product, right? That fact could be your product, it could be your opportunity, it could be your service, whatever. They observe the fact. Your job is to use words to put a frame around that fact, and that frame creates a focus in their head. And there's no dot over, you don't dot the U's, you just dot the I's, Myron. Okay, so you put a focus, you put a frame around the fact, and the frame causes you focus. The reason you put a frame around the picture is so you can focus on what's inside the picture, right? So you put a frame around that fact, and that frame is in the form of focus that you install in their head, that you get them to focus on an aspect of the fact. Now, and that fact could be your product. You get them focused on an aspect of your product. Your product has a positive aspect, it has a negative aspect, not positive and negative objectively, but positive or negative for them in their mind. When you get them to focus on what's positive to them about your offer, your product, your service, your opportunity, they buy. When you get them to focus on the negative aspects, which is usually has something to do with you, your product, your company, all that stuff you want to tell them about how long you've been in business, what the stuff, all the great stuff about your business, how wonderful you are, and how you believe in quality, customer service, and integrity, and all the rest of those useless words people use. When you get them to focus on that, that doesn't do anything for them. So what happens is, if you get them to focus on the positive aspects of the fact, makes them happy, they buy. If you get them to focus on the negative aspect, makes them sad. Okay, well, here's what happens. You create this focus in their head, and as soon as you get them to focus on something, they're gonna amplify what you cause them to focus on. It's gonna cause them to conjure up a belief about you and about your offer. Okay, y'all tracking? So it's gonna cause you to conjure up a belief, it causes them to conjure up a belief. And that belief is like a two-sided coin. If that coin lands on heads, they are going to have a belief called faith. If that belief lands on tails, it's going to cause them to have a belief called doubt. Now, here's what most people don't realize. Faith and doubt are both belief. Most people think that faith is belief and doubt is the absence of belief. But faith is belief in the outcome you desire, or this person desires. Doubt is belief in the outcome you don't desire. I'm going to make this a little smaller. There we go. So faith is belief in the outcome you desire. Doubt is belief in the outcome you don't desire. Well, what happens? When you have this belief, that belief travels down into your heart, and then it creates, so the focus in your head creates a feeling, boom, there it is, a feeling in your heart. That feeling is going to be determined by whether or not you got them to focus on the positive or the negative, whether they manifested faith or whether they manifested doubt. If the feeling that they focus on, if the aspect of their belief they focus on is faith, it's going to create the feeling of anticipation. Anticipation is the energy I get when the outcome I desire, or when the outcome I expect is desirable to me. I'm going to say that again. Anticipation is the energy I get when the outcome I expect is desirable to me. Now, what happens when I'm talking about my product,
a lot of this is a very ethereal, right? We're putting out definitions and labels on things, but the main thing that we need to agree on here is, yes, people come to us for outcomes. The most dangerous thing we can do is promise that we can get them that outcome, because there's no claim to back that up. Everyone promises that they'll get them this outcome. There isn't anything unique about the situation. Everyone tells you, join me and I'll help you lose 5 pounds. Join me and I'll help you make $1,000 more. But this isn't how this game is played. The game is played when you ask the right questions to position yourself as the right person and lead them to the assumption that, yes, this person that I'm talking to is the guy who will get me to my outcome. So it's a bad idea when you follow Myron's thinking that, oh, yeah, you need to focus on what they want. Yes, that's obvious that you need to focus on what their outcome is instead of talking about your solution. But the level above that is, how can I ask the right questions to lead the person to believe that I am the person that will get them there? And my solution is the thing that will act as the bridge from the hell they are right now to the heaven that they want to be at.
But if I cause them to have doubt, because I got them to focus on something that to me was positive, but to them was negative. Now they're going to have anxiety. And anxiety is the feeling that I get when the outcome I desire, or when the outcome I expect is not desirable to me. So what is anxiety? Anxiety is when the feeling I get is, or when the feeling anxiety is the feeling I get when the outcome I expect is undesirable to me, and so I have anxiety. And anxiety robs me of the energy to take the action. So now, instead of me like showing them all of the good stuff that they get that they desire, I show them all the stuff that I think is good that I desire them to focus on, and then they end up saying no because I created an environment that made them feel like not buying.
Okay, now we're getting closer to the truth. To be able to present someone with the things that they want to buy, how do we make that happen? By asking questions, by extracting what they are looking for. So when I'm able to ask the right questions and get a prospect to give me the right info, what they want, what's the biggest pain, what's their biggest challenges, I am able to assemble an offer or assemble a presentation that makes sense to them and that they like. So we agree here.
Okay, so what happens? Well, when the focus in their head creates the feeling in their heart, that feeling in their heart produces or manufactures or creates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It creates, are you ready for this? It creates a function in their hands. And when the focus in their head is faith, and the feeling in their heart is anticipation, the function in their hand is called power. Now they have the power to purchase what you have offered them. But when, how did I do that? Okay, so the power. So when the focus in your head when the focus in their head causes them to manufacture a belief called doubt, it's going to create a feeling called anxiety. That anxiety is going to create a function in their hands called powerlessness. And now it's not even that they don't want to buy. Now you've created an environment where they can't buy. Why can't they buy? They can't buy because you caused them to focus on the wrong aspect of your offer.
So this is a very complicated way of saying that when someone comes to you for burgers, don't offer them pizza. I'm not a big fan of overcomplicating terminologies and doing these explicit dichotomies of terms. It's actually very simple. Ask people the right questions, find out what they want, present them with an offer that's according to their ideal criteria. Simple as that. If in your sales calls you show up and you hard pitch people and the only thing you focus on is what you feel is important and not what they feel is important, you're going to lose the sale. So I summarized exactly what he's talking about for 10 minutes in 2 sentences. You're welcome.
You're desperate for a check or you're desperate for a sale so you can get an award, whatever the reason is, they can feel it. And when they feel pursued, when they feel chased, when they feel pressured, they are going to resist. But when they feel served and they feel loved and they feel like you have their best interest in mind, the only thing they can't do is not buy. So instead of trying to get people to buy what you have to sell, instead create an environment that makes them feel like buying and watch your sales go through the roof. I'm Myron Golden. Remember.
Yes, and what I'd like to add to that, so I agree with these parts there, you need to eliminate neediness. Anytime you show them that you need the sale, you're pushing them away. What I'd like to invite you to do in modern sales, because these are great sales tips from the 80s, 90s, this already happened. In 2025, if you want to win in sales, you need to act as a trusted advisor, and that means, yes, asking the right questions, yes, collecting their ideal criteria, but at the same time, be willing to get to the no first before them. So the moment you see that there's a lot of hesitation on their end and there's a lot of resistance, don't continue the conversation. Say something like, Chris, you seem very hesitant around opening up. So are you willing to have an actual conversation together, or we can just wrap it up? So be willing to get to the no and disqualifying them first, instead of showing them love and showing them excitement and trying to create that buying environment. The reason I'm saying that is sales has evolved. They don't need you necessarily. They can go to ChatGPT, they can go to AI and get the answers they're looking for. They need someone to look them in the eye and challenge them and actually be present with them and be willing to show them the door if they're not collaborating with you. But by doing that, you're actually going to pull them in. So what do I think of Myron Golden? I think Myron is a great marketer and offer constructor. He knows exactly what the psychological levers are he needs to pull to get a person to buy. When it comes to the actual sales skills, I find that it has solid principles, but it lacks some modern elegance. I find it a bit outdated for what's working today. And this happens a lot when people have stopped actively selling products and just sell their programs. They default to their authority and credibility to get sales. So it's part of the game, but it wouldn't be my go-to sales training if I wanted to succeed today. Now, if you want to know the 20 lessons I wish I learned in my 20s, watch this video right here and I'll see you there.